Once upon a time, in the bustling town of Zamora, there lived a vibrant and alluring young woman named Amara. At 22, she was celebrated for her striking beauty, but infamous for her carefree, indulgent lifestyle. Men, both single and married, flocked to her, captivated by her charm. Amara lived life by her own rules, unshackled by societal expectations. She believed life was meant for pleasure, and nothing would deter her from reveling in it. Her parents, Mama Chika and Papa Eze, were devout leaders of a flourishing church community, but their pride in leading a congregation was overshadowed by shame over their daughter's lifestyle. After discovering that Amara had entangled herself with several male members of their church, they made a heartbreaking decision to disown her. Amara's life spiraled into greater recklessness. She took pleasure in material possessions and refused to consider the consequences of her actions. Over the years, she underwent multiple abortions, convinced that motherhood would shackle her freedom and tarnish her figure. But a fateful day arrived when Amara began to experience an unshakable sickness. A visit to the clinic revealed that she was pregnant. Angry and defiant, she demanded the doctor terminate the pregnancy. "Get rid of it," she snapped. The doctor, however, refused. "Amara, the last abortion caused severe complications. Attempting another could cost you your life or your womb." Rejected by the clinic, Amara tried other avenues, but the warning was consistent. Any attempt at an abortion would endanger her life. Angry and desperate, she gave in to the reality of her pregnancy. But as the months wore on, resentment grew. She despised the baby for ruining her carefree existence. When the child was born, a healthy baby boy, Amara couldn't even bear to look at him. One dark evening, she walked to the outskirts of a slum, placed the baby on the ground, and left without looking back. Tunde, a kind-hearted laborer, discovered the abandoned baby in the slum and took him home to his wife, Halima. The couple, childless after 10 years of marriage, decided to keep the baby. Tunde carried the infant home, his heart heavy with the weight of what he had just witnessed. His wife, Halima, was standing at their small kitchen table, preparing dinner when he walked in. Her eyes widened in shock at the sight of the crying baby. "Tunde, whose child is this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I found him abandoned in the slums," Tunde replied, holding the child out to her. "I couldn't leave him there. I believe God led me to him." Halima stared at the baby for a moment before taking him into her arms. The child's cries softened, and a deep maternal instinct overwhelmed her. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she looked up at Tunde. "We've prayed for a child for so many years. Perhaps this is our answer." The couple decided to keep the child, but they couldn't shake their fears. What if someone accused them of kidnapping? What if the child's family came looking for him? After much deliberation, Tunde and Halima concluded that they would raise the baby as their own and trust in God to guide them. They named him Ayo, meaning joy, for he brought light into their home after a decade of yearning. Tunde and Halima faced challenges. Neighbors whispered behind their backs, questioning the child's origins. "Did they steal him?" some murmured. Others mocked. They couldn't have their own, so they picked up a stray. But Tunde and Halima ignored the talk, focusing instead on giving Ayo the love and care he needed. As months turned into years, Ayo grew into a healthy, energetic boy. Halima marveled at his first steps, holding him tightly when he stumbled. Tunde took pride in teaching Ayo simple tasks like fetching water and helping in the garden. Their love for the boy only deepened, but they couldn't shield him from the cruel world outside their home. Children in the village teased Ayo, calling him slum boy. The whispers of adults about his unknown origins only grew louder as he got older. One day, Ayo returned home in tears. "Mama," he sobbed, "why do they call me slum boy? What does it mean?" Halima's heart ached. She knelt down to his level, cupping his face in her hands. "Ayo, you are our son. It doesn't matter where you came from. What matters is who you are and who you will become." Tunde added, "Don't listen to those who try to bring you down, my son. Their words are empty. You have a destiny far greater than they can imagine." Despite the bullying, Ayo's determination only grew. He excelled in school, often coming home with top marks. His teachers marveled at his intelligence and curiosity, but the taunts never stopped. Children at school sang cruel songs about him. "Slum boy, thrown away like trash. Slum boy, you'll never last." The words cut deep, but Ayo found solace in his studies and the unwavering support of his adoptive parents. By the time Ayo turned 14, he had become one of the brightest students in his village. He often spent hours at the local library, dreaming of a future where he could make a difference. "Mama," he said one evening, "I want to be a doctor. I want to help people, just like you and Papa helped me." Halima hugged him tightly. "You will be a great doctor, Ayo, and we will be here to support you every step of the way." Ayo's academic excellence earned him a scholarship to a prestigious secondary school in the city. Though the thought of leaving his parents behind was painful, he knew this was his chance to achieve greatness. As Tunde and Halima bid him farewell at the bus station, they held back tears. "Go and make us proud, my son," Tunde said, his voice thick with emotion. "Remember where you came from, but don't let it define you. You are destined for greatness." Halima whispered, "We love you, Ayo, always." As the bus pulled away, Ayo looked out the window, vowing to honor the sacrifices his parents had made for him. Little did he know, his journey would soon lead him back to the shadows of his past. Ayo stepped off the bus, a mix of excitement and nervousness churning within him. The city of Alora was unlike anything he had seen before. Towering buildings reached towards the skies. Streets buzzed with activity, and people moved with purpose. This was the start of a new chapter, a chance to prove himself and fulfill his dreams. As he walked through the gates of the prestigious Starlight Secondary School, he was greeted by the sight of students in crisp uniforms and neatly manicured lawns. Ayo felt a surge of determination. "I will make the most of this opportunity," he thought. Settling into his dormitory, Ayo met his roommate, Kola, a cheerful boy with an infectious laugh. Kola immediately took to Ayo, sensing his sincerity and ambition. "You've got the look of someone with a big dream," Kola teased. Ayo smiled. "I want to be a doctor someday. What about you?" Kola grinned. "An engineer. Together, we'll conquer this school." But city life wasn't without its challenges. The taunts Ayo had faced in his village followed him here. Some students whispered about his humble origins, while others mocked his worn shoes and simple clothes. "Look at the village boy trying to fit in," one sneered. Despite the ridicule, Ayo focused on his studies. He spent long hours in the library, immersing himself in books about biology, chemistry, and anatomy. His passion for learning was unshakable, and his grades soon reflected his efforts. One evening, as Ayo prepared for a quiz, he received a letter from Halima and Tunde. His hands trembled as he opened it, their familiar handwriting bringing a rush of warmth. "Dear Ayo, we miss you terribly, but we are so proud of you. The village is buzzing with talk of your success, and we know you will make us even prouder. Remember, no matter where you go, you will always be our son. We love you deeply. With all our love, Mama and Papa." Tears filled Ayo's eyes. He clutched the letter to his chest, vowing once again to honor the sacrifices his parents had made for him. As Ayo excelled in school, rumors about his past began to spread. Some students learned about the story of the slum baby who had been abandoned and adopted by kind strangers. The whispers grew louder, and Ayo often caught people staring at him. During a biology lecture, a boy named David turned to him and sneered, "Do you even know who your real parents are? Or are you just some stray that got lucky?" Ayo clenched his fists, but remained silent. He had learned from his parents that dignity and silence often spoke louder than words. One weekend, Ayo decided to explore the city. He visited the bustling market, marveling at the vibrant colors and the cacophony of voices. As he wandered, he noticed a woman in a wheelchair begging on the street. Her face was gaunt, her clothes tattered, and her eyes hollow with despair. Something about her struck a chord in Ayo. He approached cautiously, offering her some money. The woman looked up, her gaze meeting his. There was a flicker of recognition in her eyes, but she said nothing. "Thank you, my son," she whispered weakly. Ayo nodded and walked away, unaware that the woman he had just helped was his biological mother, Amara. Amara sat in her wheelchair, clutching the money Ayo had given her. She hadn't seen such kindness in years. Her once glamorous life was now a distant memory. Each day was a battle for survival, begging on the streets of Alora while reliving the mistakes that had brought her here. The young man's face lingered in her mind. There was something familiar about him, his eyes, the way he carried himself, but she dismissed it as a trick of her imagination. "I've seen too much suffering to trust my own mind," she muttered, rolling herself back towards the slum she now called home. Back at Starlight Secondary School, Ayo's dedication began to pay off. Teachers praised him for his intelligence and perseverance, and he quickly became one of the top students in his class. His achievements earned him the admiration of some peers, but jealousy from others grew. One day, during a science competition, Ayo's team secured a resounding victory. As he held the trophy, his classmates clapped, though a few murmured, "Who does he think he is? A slum boy pretending to be someone important." But Ayo refused to let their words deter him. He wrote a letter to his parents that night, sharing his success and promising to make them even prouder. Weeks later, as part of a community outreach program, Ayo and a group of students were sent to distribute food and medical supplies to the less fortunate in the city. Among the crowd of recipients was Amara, her frail frame nearly lost in the sea of desperate faces. Ayo handed her a bag of supplies, their hands brushing briefly. Amara looked up, and once again, a sense of familiarity struck her. This time, she couldn't ignore it. "What's your name, young man?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Ayo," he replied politely. Amara froze. Her heart raced as memories flooded back. Memories of the infant she had left in the slum years ago. "Ayo," she whispered to herself, tears welling up in her eyes. Amara couldn't shake the feeling that this young man might be her son. She began asking around discreetly, trying to learn more about him. Word reached her ears about the slum baby who had risen to prominence at Starlight Secondary School. The stories matched too closely to be coincidence, but fear gripped her. How could she face him? Would he ever forgive her for what she had done? She resolved to keep her distance, watching from afar and gathering courage to confront the truth. Ayo, oblivious to Amara's suspicions, continued excelling in school. He began volunteering more frequently in the slum, driven by a desire to help those in need. Each time he visited, Amara made sure to be there, hoping for a moment to gather the courage to speak. One day, as Ayo was packing up supplies, he overheard two elderly women talking nearby. "That woman in the wheelchair, she keeps asking about the boy," one whispered. "What boy?" the other replied. "The one they call the slum baby. She seems desperate to know him." Ayo's curiosity piqued. He turned toward Amara, who quickly averted her gaze. "Ma'am," he called out, walking toward her. "Is there something you want to tell me?" Amara's hands trembled. Her secret was on the brink of unraveling, and she wasn't ready. "No, my child," she said softly. "I was just admiring your kindness." But Ayo wasn't convinced. The unease in her eyes mirrored something deep within him, a mystery he was determined to uncover. Ayo couldn't shake the feeling that the woman in the wheelchair was hiding something. Her trembling voice and the strange look in her eyes left him restless. That evening, as he lay in his dormitory bed, he replayed the encounter in his mind. "Why does she keep watching me? Why does she ask about me?" he thought. Deciding he needed answers, Ayo resolved to find out more about her. The following weekend, he returned to the slum under the guise of volunteering. He scanned the area until he spotted her sitting quietly under the shade of a tree. With a deep breath, he approached. "Ma'am," he began, sitting beside her. "I feel like there's something you want to tell me. Please, if there's anything, I'm here to listen." Amara froze, her heart racing. She wanted to tell him the truth, but feared his reaction. "You're a kind young man, Ayo," she said after a pause. "I see so much strength in you. I just want you to succeed." Ayo nodded, though he wasn't satisfied. He decided to take another route, asking some of the slum's residents about her. What he learned only deepened his suspicions. "She's not from here," one man said. "She showed up years ago after an accident, but no one really knows her story." "She asks a lot of questions about the slum baby," a woman added. "Maybe she knows something." Ayo's heart pounded. Could she be connected to his mysterious past? That night, he wrote to his parents, Tunde and Halima, recounting his suspicions. They replied quickly, urging him to tread carefully. Kola, noticing Ayo's distraction, finally confronted him one evening. "Ayo, you've been off lately. What's going on?" Ayo hesitated before deciding to share. "I found my biological mother," he said quietly. "She's the woman I told you about, the one in the wheelchair." Kola's eyes widened in shock. "The beggar woman? Are you serious? What are you going to do about it? I don't know, Ayo admitted. She says she regrets it, but I can't forget what she did. I feel like I owe my life to Tunde and Halima, not her. Kola nodded thoughtfully. Maybe you owe her nothing. But forgiveness isn't about what she deserves. It's about freeing yourself. Ayo pondered Kola's words, unsure of what path to take. Unable to make sense of his emotions, Ayo wrote a long letter to Tunde and Halima, pouring out his feelings. He described the encounter with Amara, his anger, and his confusion. I don't know if I can forgive her, he wrote, but I feel guilty because you and Mama gave me everything she didn't. What do I owe her? What do I owe you? Halima's reply came swiftly, her words filled with love and understanding. My son, you owe us nothing but the joy of seeing you thrive. As for your mother, forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, not her. Take your time to decide, but don't let hatred darken the beautiful heart we raised you to have. One weekend, Ayo decided to visit the slum again. This time, he brought supplies not just for the community but specifically for Amara. She looked weaker than before, her wheelchair worn and her frame frail. Why are you back? She asked, her voice tinged with fear and hope. I don't know, Ayo admitted, but I couldn't ignore the fact that you're suffering. Amara's eyes filled with tears as she whispered, Thank you, my son. Don't call me that, Ayo said sharply, though his tone lacked the venom it once held. He stayed longer than he intended, listening as Amara shared more about her life after she abandoned him. She spoke of her failed relationships, her accident, and her years of regret. I've been punished for my sins, she said. But meeting you, it feels like God is giving me one last chance to do something right. As Ayo walked away that evening, something shifted within him. Amara's words replayed in his mind, and he began to see her not just as the woman who had abandoned him, but as a flawed human being seeking redemption. He wrote to Halima and Tunde that night, telling them about his visit. I'm not ready to forgive her, he wrote, but I think I understand her pain now. Halima's reply was simple. Understanding is the first step, my son. Let your heart guide the rest. In the weeks that followed, Ayo continued visiting Amara, bringing supplies and spending time with her. Though he remained guarded, he began to see glimpses of the woman she might have been before life hardened her. Amara, in turn, was overwhelmed by his kindness. You're nothing like me, she said one day. You're so much better than I ever was. Ayo didn't know how to respond, but deep down, he felt a flicker of compassion growing, an ember that might one day ignite into forgiveness. One day, Amara surprised Ayo by handing him a small box. I've kept this for years, she said. I didn't have much to give you when I left you, but I kept this in case I ever found you again. Inside the box was a tiny bracelet, the same one Amara had placed on Ayo's wrist as a newborn. The sight of it brought tears to Ayo's eyes. For the first time, he felt a connection to her, a thread tying him to his origins. Why did you keep this? He asked, his voice trembling. Because I never stopped thinking about you, Amara said. Even in my darkest moments, I prayed that you would survive and find happiness. Ayo decided to visit his adoptive parents to share his feelings. Sitting in their modest living room, he told them about the bracelet and his growing sense of conflict. She kept it all these years, Ayo said, holding up the bracelet. It makes me think she truly regrets what she did. Tunde placed a reassuring hand on Ayo's shoulder. Regret doesn't erase the past, my son, but it shows that she's trying to change. If you believe she's sincere, Maybe it's time to let forgiveness in, Halima added. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting what she did or pretending it didn't hurt. It's about freeing yourself from the pain and allowing both of you to heal. The words stayed with Ayo, and for the first time, he considered opening his heart to forgiveness. The next time Ayo visited Amara, he found her weaker than usual. Her health was deteriorating, and it was clear she didn't have much time left. "You're not well?" Ayo said, concern etched on his face. Amara smiled faintly. "I'm tired, Ayo. My body is giving up, and I've made peace with it. But before I go, I need to hear something from you. Even if it's just once, I need to know that you've forgiven me." Tears welled up in Ayo's eyes. He took a deep breath, his voice shaking as he spoke. "I forgive you, Amara. I don't know if I'll ever forget what happened, but I forgive you." Amara broke down, her frail body trembling with sobs. "Thank you," she whispered. "You've given me more than I deserve." In the weeks that followed, Ayo devoted himself to caring for Amara. He used his connections at the hospital where he worked to ensure she received the best treatment possible. Though her condition remained critical, her spirits lifted, knowing she had been forgiven. One evening, as they sat together, Amara said, "Ayo, I want you to promise me something." "What is it?" Ayo asked. "When I'm gone, I want you to help others who've been abandoned like you were. Start something, anything, that gives them hope." Ayo nodded, his heart heavy but determined. "I promise." Amara passed away peacefully a few weeks later, with Ayo by her side. Her final moments were filled with gratitude and peace, knowing she had made amends with her son. After her burial, Ayo returned to Tunde and Halima, who welcomed him with open arms. "You did the right thing," Tunde said, embracing him. "She may have given you life, but you've given her peace." In honor of Amara's last wish, Ayo began planning a foundation to support abandoned and orphaned children. He named it the Joyful Future Initiative, a tribute to the name given to him by Tunde and Halima. The initiative grew rapidly, drawing support from all over the city. Ayo's story of resilience and forgiveness inspired many, and his foundation became a beacon of hope for children in need. One day, as Ayo stood in front of a crowd at the opening of a new orphanage funded by the foundation, he reflected on his journey. He saw Tunde and Halima in the audience, their faces beaming with pride. "I am who I am today because of the love and guidance of two incredible parents," Ayo said, his voice filled with emotion. "And because of the lessons life taught me through hardship. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, but it paves the way for a brighter future." The crowd erupted into applause, and Ayo felt a sense of fulfillment he had never known before. As the years went by, Ayo's foundation flourished, helping countless children find homes and opportunities. He remained close to Tunde and Halima, who took pride in their son's achievements. Though Amara was gone, her memory lived on through Ayo's work, a testament to the power of redemption, forgiveness, and unconditional love.